I remember him saying, where will you live? And I didn't have anywhere. So he had said, look, there's another person. They're going to have a room at the hotel. So you share that room and I'll start you on night reception. I think they probably saw the hunger because I was like, I need to just make this work.
At what point did you feel like, you know what, I might want to change?
For me, it was like, how do I get the next step? Sometimes I sit down with my manager and it would be like, well, you're almost there, but there were just a few things. And it'd be like, well, what are those areas? And sometimes it'd be like, well, I can't quite put my finger on it. And I thought, yeah, I know what it is.
That question of being authentic, being your authentic self and being comfortable. How did you get to a place where you are comfortable?
I'm so busy sort of masking, I can't really show who I am. People might think that I'm too much of a strong character. It's not about pleasing people. What's the worst that can happen? If I'm me, people might not like me. Okay, I can live with that.
Negotiation. I think people struggle with negotiating.
It's always important to do market research.
A lot of people want to get progress in their career. What was the key steps that you took that got you from obviously the early HR roles to now where you're Chief People Officer?
Communicating with impact will help you to get promoted.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Atto. We have a special guest in the building. We have Joyce, who's an accomplished human resources leader with over 20 years of experience, spanning a non-profit investment banking and legal sector. She holds a postgraduate diploma in human resource management and is a graduate CIPD professional, currently serving as Chief People Officer at Oxfam GB. Joyce has been at the forefront of transformative HR initiatives, including driving equality and inclusion, improving Oxfam's gender pay gap, and leading organizational change management. Her expertise extends beyond traditional HR functions to include strategic leadership, talent development, and fostering growth at all levels of an organization. Joyce, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Gosh, look at that as an intro. Have I done all of those things?
That, yeah? It's crazy, right? When you look back at all of that stuff, right?
Because I think we never sort of take the time to really reflect back. Well, I know I don't anyway. I don't really take the time to reflect back on the things that I've done. So it actually sounds quite funny hearing it.
Hearing it back, saying it back, like, oh my God, I've achieved so much.
I've achieved something.
You should be proud though. Like, I think is a very important, kind of, I guess, look back, and it's also just shown like how much work you've put into it, right? And also shows your humility, the fact that you can't believe that you've done a lot of what you've done.
Sometimes it's you're sort of in the thick of things so much that you just don't have that reflection space. So you get on with it because it needs to be gotten on with, and work needs to be done. Things need to happen. So I think, just to be able to step back and think, actually, I've done a few things. It's good. It feels good.
Yeah. And we're going to learn a lot from you. I mean, we don't get many people who are chiefs. You know what I mean? So, chiefs, that's going to be a good one. So, obviously I shared a bit about you. Can you share a bit about your background and how your early experiences shaped the way you show up professionally today? Yeah.
So, I mean, we've all got a story, right? But I think my background has massively shaped who I am today. I didn't sort of grow up in a traditional way, but I guess, we've all got a different story. For me, I spent my first sort of 18 years in foster care. So it was with a couple of different foster families. And there was a period of time where I spent time in a children's home as well. So it's been an interesting journey, and I think the families that I generally lived with through the fostering route, which was private fostering, so it wasn't there wasn't the sort of governance that takes place when you are in sort of state foster care, but we were raised. I had siblings as well, and we were raised predominantly with working class white families. Outside of London. So, it was a really different background and start for me in terms of just trying to understand who I was and trying to get a sense of identity, growing up in the 80s, somewhere where there is like literally no black people apart from you and your siblings and a couple of others who were also fostered, was a challenge in itself. And I think, you know, for me, I always knew I was going to, you know, at some point I was going to leave it all behind and start again. And that's pretty much what I did do. But I think, you know, for me, it was about sort of surviving through that journey. And the ways in which I did it, I was very artistic. So lots of drawing.
Okay.
I used to do tapestries. I could knit. It's like anything that was creative, I could pretty much do it. And so I always used to create these kind of stories in my head about what life might be like when I was old enough. And I used to watch MTV, The Base and The Box as well. And I used to see these black people and it's like, okay, they got braids, they got things going on. It's like, where are these people? So I always knew that I'd move away. But I think some of the difficulties that I experienced in terms of just racism, understanding identity, having a sense of yourself and a sense of belonging were all those things which I suppose sort of shaped me. And then I left home when I was 18. So at that point I was renting a room. I was trying to finish college. I was working a job as a waitress in the evenings. I had another job at the weekends, and I was trying to get this college course finished. But I think I was literally the only person in my whole year at college that wasn't living at home. So people used to love to come, you know, come round.
So
and kind of vibe, so I had that kind of thing going on. But it was a thing of, you know, sometimes a girl can't eat because there's no money. There is no money left. So I just had to learn how to budget. It's like, do I go to college today? Do I take the train? Can someone give me a lift? Can I eat today? That was, you know, they were the kind of things that I had to think through. And so, and so for me, when I kind of put a rucksack on my back last day of college, everything was done. Actually, we went on a cruise. Our tutor had taken us on this cruise, and after the cruise, I left and got on a train and went to London. And actually, funnily enough, most of my friends didn't say goodbye because I think they didn't think I was going, but I was. And I think some of the things that it taught me was definitely resourcefulness, definitely resilience, definitely in the face of adversity, just being able to have some optimism, and, you know, to sort of think positively about things. I think it shaped me in that sort of way, but I think I'm very pragmatic as well. So, I guess sort of empathy and just being practical about things. So I'm a big perspective person. It's like, I've seen a lot, done a lot. There's not probably a lot that will really sort of surprise me, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Where did you grow up mostly? You said outside of London. Whereabouts was it?
Yeah, so mostly in Havant in Hampshire. Okay. But there was a spell for
West-ish,
about
right?
Sort of southeast, Hampshire coast. And then probably the first 4 years was Weston-super-Mare, so that was kind of more sort of southwest side.
Like near Cardiff.
Okay. And then I had about a year in East Ham in a children's home. So
what was it about London that like attracted you to here? Because there's like Manchester, there's Birmingham.
Do you know what it was? There were lots of things. One of the things was I knew my sister was in London. And that was a story actually, just in terms of how I found her, you know, how I got back in touch with my big sister, because she had left home and we'd all sort of lost contact. And I just didn't know which university she'd gone to. I knew she'd gone to a uni in London, but I just didn't know which one. And so I remember looking in the UCAS books in college and finding like, I don't know, about 5 unis in London, and I wrote to all of them. I put the letters in like the college outbox because I had no money for stamps. And so I sent all these letters off, and I was sitting at home one day. I wasn't waitressing, I didn't have work. It was probably about 3 or 4 weeks after I posted the letters, and it was my sister that called. So she called on the phone. And I was actually really shocked to hear her voice. And she said to me, you know, when I see you, I'm going to come down and see you. And when I do, I'm going to show you the envelope that has made its way to me. But there are so many forwards from different universities that it's unreal that it actually found its way to me. So she was at Brunel University and I knew she was in London. And so, you know, that was another reason for kind of wanting to go to London, really. But it was really where I thought, you know, this is a big city, and it was the only thing that I'd really dreamt of, I think, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Wow, I mean, that's definitely God, that the fact that you were able to like reconnect with your sister. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was really nice. And yeah, I've been there, you know, that's where I've been ever since. Just never really looked back.
Yeah. And I guess obviously it's been life-changing for you because obviously you became a chief people officer here. Well, if we go back to the early days, right? So when we spoke, you mentioned that you got into hotel management.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So what was that role that you were doing, and what did like those early days like look like for you?
Yeah, so it wasn't quite hotel management. That's where I aspired to get to. Okay. Maybe in the lower rungs of management.
Okay, cool.
Actually, just before I came up to London, I decided, you know, I knew that I needed to have a job, and I was very much in the sort of hospitality industry because I was working in restaurants, and that was the course that I was doing at college as well. So I'd always thought I wanted to be a hotel manager. And I remember writing to all of these hotels in London, again, using the college's outbox. I think I found everything in this magazine, and I was sending all these letters off, just speculatively applying. And I got a letter back. I didn't hear much from anybody else, but I got this letter back. And it was the Forte Post House in Gatwick. And you know, the operations director had asked me to come in for an interview, and I did, and I met him, an Irish guy called Vincent Madden. Never forget him, because he believed in me. He actually gave me a chance, and I remember, you know, kind of talking about, you know, what I thought I could bring to a role, and why he should hire me, and I remember him saying, you know, where will you live and all that sort of thing. And I didn't have anywhere. So he had said, look, there's another person who's going to be doing like a management training course, and they're going to have a room at the hotel. So you share that room, and, you know, at least you've got somewhere to stay. And I'll start you on night reception. So that's what I did. I started on night reception, just tried to learn the ropes. We had lots of air crews in, so I used to see all of the things that used to transpire. Night is a mad time to work at a hotel. Like flight crews. So
okay.
So we had lots of and people that were going on holiday and things like that. So it was a crazy. You know, it was a good induction to, because you see so many things at night time. I saw a lot of things.
What did that experience teach you then?
It taught me how to sort of problem solve, I think. You know, you have to think on your feet quite quickly. People were sort of coming and checking out quite quickly, so you always wanted them to have a pleasant stay. And I think with the air crews and the airlines, because they tended to be sort of regular customers, you wanted to make sure that even the short spell of time that they were there, it was as, you know, trouble-free as possible, and it was all kind of straightforward and easy for them. So that was that experience. And then when Vincent was moving to a hotel as the managing director, he moved to a hotel in Kensington. He asked me to go with him as front office supervisor. So I was quite chuffed with that. I was 19 at the time. And the responsibility included kind of being duty manager and taking on duty manager shifts. And it was the whole of the front office area. So it's, you know, reception, concierge, you know, housekeeping and all of that kind of stuff. So, I was quite chuffed with myself for that. Got a little pay rise as well. And, I was in...
At 19, that's brilliant, though.
Little pay rise. It was... And that just taught me hotels in London. I mean, the rooms were smaller. We had lots and lots of American guests, and they just had expectations of a big room, you know, lots of space. But instead, they got these small rooms. So, so it was always kind of, how do I solve problems? There might be a booking where, you know, it was a family with young kids and they'd been put in rooms that just weren't next to each other, but the hotel was fully booked. And so it was you always had to think on your feet really quickly. And yeah, I just developed a bit of a knack for it. I think there were regular customers that used to ask for me. So that was always nice. But yeah, I doubt people expected to see me when they asked for the duty manager. I'd come out with my red braids, long nails, every colour. Yeah. Right. Always red, dark red was my thing, was my colour. But yeah, I'd always be able to, most times be able to come up with some sort of a solution.
Yeah. And at what point did you feel like, you know what, I might want to change, I'm doing well here, but like actually I want more? Like, when did that happen for you?
I liked going out, Atto, and it was like, this shift work is just destroying me right now. So I think it was the shifts, the pay wasn't huge either. And, I kind of just thought I'd like to do something else, actually. And so I was trying to think about what are the things that I like doing. I definitely like connecting with people, meeting new people, I like solving problems. At the time, it was personnel, it wasn't HR. And I didn't really know what it was, but there was this person that worked in personnel at this hotel that I was at. Yeah. And she seemed to, sit down with people a lot and drink tea and, have a chat. And so I thought, okay, it's a bit like an agony yard type job. I can do that. And so, I went to an agency and I'll never forget it. It was in Middlesex Street, near Liverpool Street. And, the lady that was the manager of that employment agency, was called Sue. And she just sat down with me for a while and she just really asked about my story. And, I think she had recognised that 19 was quite young to take on lots of responsibility. So she said, look, there is a role. It's a starting and junior position. It's an insurance broking company in the city. We could give it a go and I'll do a really good covering letter because you've taken on a lot of responsibility. So I think you could do this. So I kind of left it in Sue's hands and Sue came through. So, but I did have to, it was kind of lots of verbal reasoning tests, like numerical reasoning, all things that I just hadn't done before.
Crazy.
But, I went along and I did all of these tests and then there were a couple of rounds of interviews as well. And when I was offered the job, I was really, really chuffed because I thought, okay, I'm on the trajectory to actually having a career and sort of building something new. So that was my journey into HR in a traditional sort of pinstripe insurance broking organisation. So it was really new. It was very, very alien to me, but it taught me a lot. I learned lots from that experience. There was a global HR director called Steve who just helped me out. Again, someone that believed in me. So I had somebody called Tom who was my immediate line manager. And he was great. And I also had the group HR director who just, saw something in me. They sponsored me to go to university. So I was able to go to university for kind of 3 years. In the evenings I'd go. And then in the day I was a training administrator. I started off in training, but then I worked and did more and more stuff with Steve. So I was able to see kind of on a more global level what were the projects that he was working on and all of that kind of stuff. So I really it taught me a lot about organizations, what people are motivated by. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, right, what do you think they saw in you now looking back? Because I don't feel like everybody gets those kind of opportunities, and like people watching and listening to this probably would want similar opportunities. But what do you think they saw in you to be like, you know what, we really like Joyce, we really like what you're doing, we're going to pay for you to go to uni, which is crazy. That's amazing. Yeah, what do you think?
I think they probably saw definitely a hunger, because I was like, I need to just make this work and I need to, show that I can get this done. It's not my comfort zone. In fact, it's way out of it because this is completely different from hotels. And, even like Lotus Notes, the email system that used to be used at that time, it's like Lotus Notes.
Lotus Notes, that's old school. I know. I don't think I ever used that, but I heard about that.
Yes. So it was all of that kind of stuff. So for me, it was just like, I was really just hungry to learn, to try and, get on as much as I could. And I was working hard. So it was kind of the grafting of things that people don't necessarily see. But I just kind of just made sure that I just systematically just kept an eye on the detail. And I was really focused on that. But I think it was, those times it was kind of, you need to prove that you really want this. You worked longer hours, you did all of that stuff. So I just did it because I wanted to get on my career journey and on that ladder. And also I was enjoying learning. Despite all the challenges that came with it, I was enjoying the learning that I was getting from it as well. So I think that's what it was really, just hunger, enthusiasm, and just a willingness to learn. That's what it was.
Yeah, and I feel like people like that though, right? They're like somebody that's like passionate about the company that they kind of work for. And sometimes I've got a theory sometimes. I feel like, because I mentor people sometimes, and I feel like I connect better with people who are really eager and want to really learn and want to learn from you, rather than people maybe a bit disconnected, not interested. Yeah. You kind of feel like you want to help them more.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, you're asking me this question. Okay, cool. This is how you kind of do it. I don't know if you feel like that, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, I think it's that eye on potential. That's what it is. It's like you spot certain things in people. And, I think when you spot those things, it's like, okay, this is someone that I really want to help, and just try and help them, kind of push them forward. And I think that's probably what Tom and Steve spotted in me, and even Sue, who was the manager at that recruitment agency. So I think that's what it is. Sometimes it's the not necessarily what somebody's done right now, but what's their potential, and you show that in different ways. Sometimes it's not always easy to put your finger on what was it that I actually showed, but yeah, it was kind of, just give me a job, give me a chance, please. Yes.
That's what it is. You just need the one chance. You got to prove it, right?
Yes, yeah.
I know what it feels like when your business expenses keep rising, but your business income doesn't. From big ticket costs like staff wages, tax bills, and rent, to the smaller stuff that adds up fast. Card fees, event fees, software subscriptions, delivery charges, even your phone and internet bills. Running a business in 2025 is expensive, and it's not getting cheaper. Yet, so many of us leave thousands sitting idle in a standard business account, earning nothing, when that money could be growing effortlessly through business savings. That's like leaving your stockroom full, but never putting anything on the shelves. You got the goods, but you're not letting them work for you. So isn't it time your business funds worked a little harder for you? That's why I use Tide's Instant Save account. You can earn up to 4.22% AER Variable on your business savings passively, FSCS protection up to £85,000, and you can open an account with just £1. This very minute, Tide is offering a £100 bonus for new members from our community who open and fund a Tide Instant Saver with £5,000 in the first 30 days. Just use the code SAVVYWALLET, plus for the first 6 months, you can earn up to 4.22% AER Variable on your business savings. It only takes 3 steps to get started. Tap the link in the episode description, enter the code SAVVYWALLET, and let your money start earning while you work. New Tide members receive up to 4.22% AER Variable. Interest rates are tiered with a top rate for balances over £1 million. New Tide members get these rates free for 6 months. After that, your Tide plans rates apply. For the full offer, Ts&Cs, visit tide.co/savings. Rate correct as of the 8th of May 2025. So what was like the key steps that you took that got you from obviously the early HR roles to now where you're like Chief People Officer at Oxfam? Like, what are the key steps and decisions that you made that helped you get there?
I think for me, it was very much, I decided I wanted to make this, a career for me. I'd done my studies by this point as well. And some of the things that I did, I just wanted to sort of build confidence. I probably wanted to move into more of a HR generalist role, so away from the training and to get into something else. And what I did, I had a period where I went away and travelled a bit, and then when I came back, I immediately needed to pay some credit cards off, and so I started temping. It was a really buoyant temp market. And I was temping in the city, mostly in investment banks. And what I had to do there was just hit the ground running, because there's this expectation, you're a temp, you need to know your stuff and hit the ground running. And that's what I tried to do. So it helped me to build a lot of confidence as well, because it's like, okay, I just have to do it. And I was in different places and different organisations, and it wasn't just banking. I did kind of some of the big legal firms as well, and other organisations as well. And it was all just about hitting the ground running and just getting it done. It's quite nice because most of it was more sort of project-based work. You know that there's a time span and you've got something that you needed to deliver. And I think, going into the different places helped me to just navigate how do different places work. How can I get things done here? And yeah, it was a confidence boost. And then I think once I moved more into sort of creative industries, so when I went to News, it was News International at the time, obviously now rebranded to News UK. It was like, okay, this is a bit different. This doesn't come with all the structure that I've been used to when I've been going into these different banks. This is like very ambiguous. I've been told, this is your desk, there's a phone, make it happen. It's like, what do I do now? Make it happen. What do I do? Yeah, okay. Yeah, left to devices. And within that, you're looking for the people that can kind of give you a few tips or, sort of help you along the way. But I'm really determined as well. And I think, it was, I didn't realise this until afterwards, but some people had said to me, in the HR team, we kind of put a bet on that you wouldn't last more than, a month or two. And that was kind of a general theme with people coming into the organisation. Yeah. But, when I hear things like that, it just makes me more determined. Exactly. It's like, okay, right, you don't think I could do it? Right, okay, then let's do this. So for me, it was really about just finding different ways to connect with people, building relationships and building strong relationships with stakeholders. It took me a while to grow into the role in terms of what is actually expected and what is needed. And I'll be honest, I probably was not my full self at the time because I was trying to learn the ropes and learn the role. But also I probably felt that I didn't have like loads in common with people. It's like, okay, I've come from this different background. Yeah. By that time I was a single mum as well. And it's like, I just need to kind of sort of keep my head down somehow and just get the job done and just, try and learn as I'm going along. Yeah. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did, if I'm honest. It was a bit of a sink or swim environment. Okay, sink or swim. Okay. So wow. So that's how I kind of found it. And you needed a lot of resilience. You needed a bit of a thick skin, I think, to be there.
It's media. I'm sure.
It's media. Yeah, so needed a bit of a thick skin to be there. And then I kind of left there just after the closure of News World. So not long after that is when I kind of left. And I joined for a short term Pearson, and then I went to HarperCollins Publishing, and that was really different. There was, I think I kind of moved away from some of the really gritty sort of employee relations things, settlement agreement, all of that kind of gritty stuff into more sort of, now I can, maybe add another string to my bow, maybe sort of learning and development and just, more of the nice side of HR. So for me, I wasn't always looking at a trajectory that was upwards. Sometimes it was a bit of a sideways one because I thought actually I might get a little bit more from this role. So that's what I did. And I generally kind of moved around to get promotions because, let's be honest. This. Yeah, I moved around a bit to get promotions. I found, I'm not gonna lie. I found that it was challenging more times being a woman anyway. Okay. But then when you're adding being a black woman on top of that, it could be really challenging in terms of, I know that I have a certain amount of strength in me. When that came out, it was like, Joyce is aggressive, or she's, all of that sort of narrative that is like, actually, that is completely, that's not the narrative that should be used here at all. But it was the microaggressions that that you know, at that time, the microaggressions term wasn't there, but I knew it was something, and I always felt that. And it was almost like, gosh, if I put a foot out of line, there's going to be a much tougher consequence on me than there's going to be on a white colleague of mine. And that's just the reality of it. So, you know, for me, it was like, how do I sort of move on? How do I get the next step? And sometimes you sit down with my manager and it would be like, well, you're almost there, but there were just a few things that you know, just a few things. And it'd be like, well, what are those areas? And sometimes it'd be like, well, I can't quite put my finger on it. And I thought, yeah, I know what it is. You know, we're from completely different backgrounds. We're not, you know, there's, in terms of affinity bias and things like that, we're just different people. It doesn't mean I shouldn't get the promotion, but you are happy to promote people that have nowhere near as much experience as me, because there is that affinity bias there. So some of those narratives were really unfortunate, because I spent a lot of time building really good relationships with the stakeholders that I worked with. I think I had a lot of credibility, a lot of gravitas, and enjoyed really good, you know, relationships where they, you know, I was definitely sort of you know, sort of wise counsel for them. And so I did move on to kind of get the next step. I went to CBRE, which is huge, massive commercial real estate organisation, like 90,000 employees worldwide. Wow. So it's like, okay, how do I make a mark here? What are some of the things that I could bring in? And at that point, I think I just was really comfortable with myself. Like, this is me. And, you know, my son had grown up. So it's like, you know, whereas before it'd be like, oh, we've got to keep a roof over our heads, got to keep the bills paid, got to make sure there's food on the table. At that point, he was growing up, and it was like, actually, no, she's here. I've kicked down the door now. She's out here now. She's out here now. And actually, I just really enjoyed sort of stepping into that confidence. I was working at CBRE with a managing director who was female, which is really unusual in the real estate world. And that really helped. So she was really supportive. I wanted to do the best for her. And so, you know, I sort of stepped into that sort of seniority, I think, quite well. And then wanted to get back into creative. So that's when I went back to ad agency world. It was my first chief people officer role. It was a Europe, Middle East, Africa role. So it was broad along amongst lots of different countries. And for me, it was just kind of understanding the nuances. It was kind of trying to be creative with, you know, what we do around a people strategy, the initiatives that we bring in, because some initiatives that might work here might not work in Dubai or Turkey, or so you've got to think about all of those things as well, and just have really exceptional stakeholder management. So we'd have agencies all across EMEA, and for me, I was trying to build relationships with all of the CEOs for those different agencies, and the HR directors within those agencies as well, to be that credible sort of voice that was that sort of convening role, if you like. So that was the sort of main task for me. I think with relationships, you can get a lot done. Yeah. And so there was a lot of travel. There was a lot of understanding nuances, and a lot of understanding of the nuances, what makes this agency different. And so we don't want to, sort of strip that away by having all of these central initiatives that don't make sense for that particular environment. So, you know, being able to sort of think creatively, I think is important. And then here I am now as Chief People Officer for Oxfam. Not a role I was expecting to get. And I think the headhunters sort of said, oh, you know, there's 3 of you in the final, but, you know, the other 2 have got loads of experience, much more corporate experience and all of that sort of thing. So I sort of entered the final stages of the process with a concept that I'm just not going to get the role. And so I think it allowed me to be just fully relaxed. It's like, oh, well, I've got nothing to lose.
Exactly.
So it helped me to relax into you know, the process. And when I got the call and I got the job, I just thought, okay, maybe they've seen something different in me. And so, you know, what I don't want to do is go into an organisation and then, you know, be someone else. I need to be me, because that's the difference. That's the unique thing that I bring and that everybody brings to an organisation. What is you? You know, who are you? And what is it that you kind of bring? So, you know, in yourself, bringing yourself is enough.
Amazing. I've got so many follow-up questions, Joyce. Like, honestly, like, your journey is incredible. I know the watchers and listeners are going to be very, like, you know, inspired by this. I think a question that was inspired is not part of the list of questions, but as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, you know, I think that question of being authentic, being your authentic self and being comfortable, How did you get to a place where you are comfortable? Because I'm trying to get people to feel comfortable as well, because they, you know, there's some people that, I'll give you an example. When I worked at KPMG, it was very suited and booted. By the time I left, I wasn't suited and booted anymore. I was just like, yeah, that's not me. I don't mind it. I'll wear my suit when I need to. But I just didn't feel comfortable doing that, right? And I know there's a lot of people that feel like they're not being their real self and they're scared to, because they're like, actually, will people like me? Will I get promoted here? So how did you get comfortable, and how can people get better at being their authentic self at work?
For me, sort of stepping into the authenticity was really around, okay, you know, it's not about pleasing people. It's about, you know, sort of doing the right thing. I've always kind of been one of those people that would stand up for an underdog, stand up for justice, all of that kind of thing, stand up for things when I see them as being unfair. But I just think that in previous worlds, when I tried to do that, there is a consequence on me sort of personally for doing that. But I think as I got a bit older, I got just more confident with, actually, I'm just going to challenge that if it needs challenging. And I've always been somebody that has been kind of quite solutions focused. I've always been, you know, sort of a problem solver as well. And so they're the kind of main dynamic that I think that I bring to a role. And so I felt more comfortable in kind of bringing my authenticity to that, if you know what I mean. Okay. If I was not doing a job or not sort of, you know, doing what I needed to do, I think I'd probably feel a bit more wary about bringing my authentic self. But I think when you're in a place where you're confident with what you do, you understand the role, you understand your place within an organisation as well. And you stop being somebody different outside of work than you are inside of work, and kind of bringing that together more. I think the authenticity journey happens, and that's what happened for me. I think I was so busy sort of masking, oh my goodness, I can't really show who I am because people might think it's too much, or people might think that I'm too much of a strong character, or they'll think that I'm aggressive, or, you know, that, you know, I'm the bearer of bad news because other people don't want to do it, and all of that kind of stuff. So, I think a lot of my authenticity came with confidence in the role that I was doing. Okay. And then the kind of perspective thing, which I mentioned earlier, which is, what's the worst that can happen if if I'm me, you know, people might not like me. Okay, I can live with that, you know, as long as they kind of respect the role and the job that I'm doing, then that's fine. But, you know, also if they don't like me, you know, I'll take the energy somewhere else. There'll be somewhere where it works really well. But yeah, I mean, it's just a balance. For me, it's just a balance of empathy. I think I understand that. I've got quite a high emotional intelligence just from the experiences that I've had in life. So I can read situations quite quickly. Okay. And sort of understand situations quite quickly. And I'm confident in sort of speaking on what I see. With the voice in the back of my head, that's what's the worst that can happen. Yeah. Actually, this could change something for somebody. It could change something for somebody else. I guess that's what it is really. I don't know whether that really fully answers your question, but for me, I think I got to a place where, you know, my son had grown up a bit. It's kind of quite tiring doing the sort of masking thing. And I thought to myself, actually, you know, when I go for interviews, it's not just going to be the organisation interviewing me anymore. I'm going to kind of interview them as well, because I want to know who I'm working with. I want to know who I'm working for, you know, and we'll just see if there's kind of a chemistry there where I know I can come and be myself. I think you have to check it immediately if you know that you know, the chemistry doesn't feel right. I think that's where you know, this might not be an environment that I thrive in. So if you can be sort of, you know, a bit choosy or picky around that and think on that, then I think that's really important, just to, you know, you need to work with someone that you can connect with that just kind of gets it. So that's when I think I stepped into the authenticity.
Amazing. And I think it's, you know what, there's like lots of lessons in your journey that I think is quite important. And what you just said, like, definitely I feel like if you are confident, like you say, then just, I think confidence is something that you get over a bit of repeated experience. I think when you're quite young in your career, from what I remember, you're just trying to impress, you're just trying to learn the role. So for me, I just remember just being more focused on, okay, well, how do I do this role? What is it? What am I trying to do, rather than trying to be me? And then once you kind of be you, you just like, take it or leave it. Is what it is, right?
And that's a nice space to get into, isn't it? Because you're right. It's like, you know, in those younger years, like, okay, I need to, all I'm focused on is doing a really good job. People don't need to know who I am. And actually, I don't want to share that, because people have been to private school and this, that, and the other. And I'm, you know, so I don't want to share any of that. But I just want to do a really, you know, really, really good job. And then I think sometimes in doing that and not sharing very much about yourself, it's like you're just never like fully you, because it's like, okay, there are those sorts of characteristics that I don't want to display, or I don't want people to know, or whatever else. But now it's just kind of, you know, it is what it is, and I'll go to the space that suits me the most. I think it is challenging as people kind of, you know, starting out in their career. I mentor a few people sort of informally. And, you know, I know that there are challenges there. There have been for me. Those challenges remain. But I just try and help people with, you know, trying to look at ways that they can sort of navigate a particular situation. Ultimately, people have to do what's best for themselves. I can't say to somebody, you know, quit. You know, you know what your situation is. And so, you know, I've got to be empathetic about that. But I generally try and help them navigate, because I would have really appreciated just having, you know, somebody that looks like me, you know, sort of supporting me and helping me on that journey.
What does your role as a chief people officer entail? Like, what's the day-to-day like? Or is it different day-to-day?
It can be different day to day. I mean, ultimately, you're owning and you're designing and delivering a people and culture strategy for the organisation that is aligned to the organisation's goals. So that's kind of like the key thing. And then you have to be able to motivate and inspire a team of people behind that to kind of work to that strategy and to work to that agenda as well. So I would say that's a kind of massive thing. Working closely with senior leadership. I'm part of the SLT. You've got to work closely with your peers as well, and really sort of take an organisational approach with things. So really kind of be able to join the dots. There might be sort of more sort of operational reviews that I need to have. So people and culture division will have lots of areas within it. It will have talent. It can have recruitment, learning and development as well. It has kind of business partners that are responsible for the day-to-day interactions with the different divisions in the organisations. So you've got all of these elements, and really it's just kind of making sure that you're across the things that you need to be across, but you can't be across all the detail. It just doesn't work like that. So it's really making sure that you've got a team that's empowered, and that's kind of working to the delivery of the sort of overall, I guess, sort of strategy and objective.
Yeah. You said that you can't be across the detail, which is true. So how do you, like, what's like your leadership style like? In terms of making sure that you get what you need, because you obviously it's true, you can't be across everything. That'll burn you out quickly.
Yeah, very quick burnout. So for me, it's just kind of giving sort of broad parameters. I wouldn't say that I'm a leader that thinks they know all the answers. I'll have an idea about something or how I think something could be done or should be done. But I'm also really, really interested in what other people's ideas are, because I don't think I know everything. I definitely don't. So for me, it's really kind of setting a broad parameter of something. So look, this is what we need to do, guys. These things we need to take into account. And then I'm happy for people to just kind of run with it. And, sort of come back to me, tell me the things that I need to know. Generally, I would say, sort of tell me the kind of key and pertinent things in as fewer words as possible, in as quick a way as possible. Just summarize everything so it's really clear. And then there are certain things where you just need to sort of contract almost with your leadership team or those people that report directly into you. These are the times when I'm really happy for you to come to me for a decision. These are the times when I just expect you to make a decision on it. So it just kind of gives people, a bit of empowerment around, where can I, what's the line? Where can I make a decision? But yeah, I think it's just, just tell me what you need me to know. But yeah, I can't get across all of the detail on things. So really it's about kind of how you trust the teams that report into you and empower them. And look, if I think something is slightly off, then I might guide it back onto a path that I think is, that probably would work better. But as much as possible, I just like I like to set a parameter and for people to go and, figure it out and, tell me what I need to know. But there are things that I'm just happy for you to just, plug away and do. Because I think sometimes you have to sort of realise that as a chief people officer, and especially for an organisation like Oxfam, it's not just, there's probably about 40% of your role where you're actually sort of managing directly the team and the division that you're responsible for. I would say probably 60% of it is kind of working with SLT. It might be working with the board. It might be working with other parts of the confederation. Yeah. It could, there's all that sort of dynamic. So I think it's just about having strong leaders within your division that are able to just on a day-to-day, kind of, get things done. And so, my approach is to kind of trust, and to, let people just be creative. This is what we're looking for. Let's find a way of doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I personally prefer that leadership style because I feel like it allows people to grow, flourish, gets them to learn, allows them to be creative. If you're like constantly on somebody's back. It's like the worst. They get anxiety, they quit, they don't want to be at work. So it's not.
That's no fun. Nobody flourishes in an environment like that. And so, you want people that work with you and work in your teams to be, happy to come into work. You want them to feel inspired as well. Exactly. So, you don't, I think, that's conversation time when you're on somebody's back kind of like that. It's, something's not working.
Yeah, exactly. So I had another question for you, right? So you mentioned some challenges which were, the authenticity part. Were there any other challenges that you faced as you were stepping into like senior leadership?
I would say some of the other challenges that I faced stepping into senior leadership, I would definitely say a bit of imposter syndrome. Okay. I mean, I think you experience that at different times in your career, but for me, definitely, because I don't know. I just always felt that there were people in the room that were smarter than me, that knew more, that understood more. I'd be sitting at, sort of leadership meetings. It's like, what's going on? And I understood it. But I just always felt like, I just don't quite feel like, I'm in this room, but I don't feel like I'm part of it. So I think that was a challenge. And some of it, look, I think some of it is around when you're a HR leader, it's quite a transferable skill set. You can go from industry to industry, but then what you're not necessarily getting is, you know, a long enough time in a particular industry to really understand the nuts and bolts of it really thoroughly. Now, there are some industries that I definitely understand better than others. Some industries are quite complex and you just have to build up your knowledge, and it takes a bit of time to sort of do that. But it didn't, you know, I still kind of felt like an imposter often in a room. So I would say that was probably a bit of a challenge. There are loud voices that are very confident and that have always had that confidence through life. And so I would say that was probably definitely a challenge for me in terms of, you know, kind of taking myself forward, really. It was, you know, because you sort of question, you know, should I be here, or, you know, have I got what it takes to be here? And it's like, yeah, of course you have. But it was just something that sat with me for quite a while. I just always felt like, oh, you know, I shouldn't be here. And I think sometimes when you think that, you know, that's the vibe that you kind of emanate as well. But I think it's also worth recognizing that you go into lots of organizations, there is a lot of affinity bias. Do you look like me? Do you sound like me? Are you from the same background as me? If so, we'll get on fine. It will all work perfectly, you know? So there is also, I guess there is also that dynamic of feeling kind of, you know, slightly sort of imposter syndrome.
So how do you manage that? Because there's a lot of people watching, listening again, that they're managing that as well. Like, should they be there? Should they do this? Don't get twisted. I get imposter syndrome too, you know. I mean, I feel like people can get in different situations, but like it's funny because you feel like but you're there though, right? So why do you feel like you don't deserve it? And actually, should you even be questioning it? Why am I questioning it? Let somebody else question it. Why am I telling myself that I'm, you know? But how did you kind of manage it yourself?
I think I sort of managed it by I'd always swat up as much as possible on something. So it's like, okay, like, let me try and get as much knowledge on this particular subject as possible. You know, see how I sort of go from there. So I'd always try and do that, always try and create the headspace to just, you know, just feel like I'd swatted up on something. I think always kind of managed to find some sort of a connection. And I realised that probably in the last, let me think, in the last sort of 5.5, 6 years of my career, it's like, okay, wow, I can really connect with, like, you know, pretty much anyone. I can find something, you know, that we can connect over. Because that helps as well, just having, you know, some people that you can go to at work that you can, you know, that where you have that trust, where you could just say, look, actually, I'm not getting this. Like, is it me? Like, what do I need to sort of think about? And just having those people there where you have got that safety, where you could go and just say, look, you know, what does this kind of mean?
I like that one. That's a good one.
So, and I think if I was being like brutally honest, you know, I grew up with a white family you know, now I'm in London, you know, it's almost like I can almost be a chameleon in some spaces.
Right.
And that's not everyone is going to, you know, it's just the background that I'm from, and what life's kind of thrown at me, helps me to just find a way of connecting in different spaces. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And I think, to be fair, I think people can figure that out because we connect on lots of different things. Like for me, I'm an Arsenal fan. I connect with all types of people on Arsenal or if it's basketball, if it's anime.
Yeah.
There's lots of things. Like you're right. It's like you're saying, it's like finding that connection of where you have that common ground.
Yeah.
And I think that then sometimes breaks down the walls with people, and then
it does.
Obviously having those people you can trust as well.
It does, because it suddenly makes people think, okay, yeah, actually outside of work, there's something that we could actually talk about outside of it. And it was what we, I know that we sort of mentioned it before, but relationships are everything in terms of being able to get on, just knowing how to build them. It's just really important in terms of, moving forward and just getting on.
Okay. Cool. If you like this episode, leave a review, tap, like, or subscribe to the channel. Your support is appreciated. We'll keep working hard to bring you more valuable episodes. So obviously, a lot of people want to get, progress in their career, right? As well. We want to leverage your experience, right? And I'm sure you've had to, what's the word? Let me not evaluate people. It sounds weird, but I'm sure you've had to evaluate people for them to get promoted. What makes someone stand out to leadership? And what are the behavior, skills, or mindset that consistently get people promoted, do you think?
I think communicating with impact will help you to get promoted. So I think, don't run through a task list. Think about what some of the outcomes are that you've been able to achieve, how that's kind of helped the organisation generally, come with some metrics about something. I think it's just kind of having kind of intentional communication about things, because that's going to create a very different perception of a conversation than if you're kind of running through a task list of things that you have. I think it's also important to kind of be clear when you're having like your one-to-ones and your appraisals and that kind of thing, that this is where I want to get to, this is what I'm hoping to achieve, what are the things that you think I'm missing that would enable me to sort of get there. And whether that's with a mentor, whether it's with your line manager or whatever, I think it's always good to take the opportunity to think about, okay, where might the gaps be, and what do I need to show that I could kind of get there. And I think there is just general other skills that you need to have. So I think you need to be able to be solutions focused. I don't think anyone ever wants like a load of problems to be dumped off on their desk. So I think kind of being able to be solutions focused, and just finding a way to sort of come up with, some innovation to an issue that always really, really helps.
Yeah. And connected to that, how can people manage up? Managing up is a term that I've been learning throughout my career, but it's not something you don't get taught it, right? But you hear it in conversations. I'm managing up. How can people be more strategic about managing up and making sure that, the value that they think that they bring in is visible to leadership?
That's an interesting question, because it depends on the context as well. Because certain times you could say, well, managing up, and there can sometimes be a sort of can create a slight perception of I'm going around to manage up, but actually one of the things that you need to be able to do is kind of manage good relationships with your peers, anybody that reports to you as well, so it doesn't feel like it's just a managing up thing, because there are people that can do that really well, like manage up, but they don't manage across, they don't manage down, any of that kind of thing, because they're just so focused on the managing up piece. But so I think it sort of depends on the context. You would hope that somebody has like a really good and proactive line manager that's really focused on their development and just kind of making sure that they have visibility in all the right spaces and empowers them to sort of do so. But I think, if that's not the case, probably some of the things that I mentioned before, like definitely the communication with impact thing, I think that's really, that's really important, because, I'll definitely, my ears will, definitely prick up if somebody's talking about, okay, these are some of the outcomes, these are some of the things that I've done, these are the outcomes, as opposed to coming to me with just a list of, okay, this is just like a whole list of things that I need, to talk you through. So I think that's really important. I think I'm still kind of working with the managing up phrase in terms of does it feel like you're going over somebody's so it's just managing that dynamic really, but just being really pragmatic, being proactive. If you spot a gap somewhere, just kind of make some suggestions about what could be done, and sometimes just go ahead, go do something. It's like, okay, I've seen a gap there. I'll have a few conversations, maybe something might work. And I think just being able to show that level of proactivity, that really, really helps. But I think you sort of show yourself as a kind of all-rounder. And I think, hopefully you get the spaces that you need in terms of being able to really kind of be out there. But yeah, I think it sort of depends on the context. But again, communicating with some impact, being solutions focused, just being quite proactive, getting it done really.
Thanks for highlighting like down, and I don't even want to say down because that sounds mad.
Not down. I think mad. I said downwards, but you know what I mean.
By the way, but managing your colleagues, I think that's very important, because at the end of the day, right, you do need their support. If you want to get feedback, you're going to want to get feedback from them as well. And you want it to be good feedback. And if you need their support, if it is any kind of team task that you're doing, you also want to be able to do that effectively. Nowadays, work from home is happening way more than it used to happen. I work from home a lot, pretty much. I'm not going to give up the game, but I work from home a lot. And, but with that, obviously the benefits are, you're a bit more time efficient versus obviously if you go into the office, you get to see people all the time. It can sometimes, if you're not careful, you can become almost invisible, right? People can kind of forget you're working. So obviously you're working, but they can kind of forget what you're kind of bringing to the company. How can people be more visible or show that they're visible whilst, still working from home, and be better and just say, okay, hey, I'm here, I'm doing this and whatnot?
I think the key thing for individuals in that situation is people need to have goals set, because you need to know how what you're doing links into the bigger picture, because that's the thing that kind of keeps you connected and that kind of grounds you. And I think regular contact with line manager, team, however that looks. Sometimes it might be really formal meetings, but sometimes you can do informal things online as well. So I think being able to do that, I think making sure that working from home isn't a barrier to sort of connecting with the colleagues that you need to connect with. That's really important, because otherwise you will feel really siloed. And I do think it is good to find the opportunities where you can go in and be part of a community at work in some shape or form, because I think it's that grounding back to something like, why am I working here? What's sticky about this particular organisation? I think, having work friends is always a good thing. That kind of keeps it sort of, it feels, that's the sort of thing that keeps something quite sticky, I think, as well. So I do think it's important to just find those moments where actually I can go in and I can connect with everybody. But I think, having goals, making sure that you're achieving those, making sure you're staying connected to the team, but also just making sure you're doing those pieces of work that we spoke about earlier. They're kind of proactive stuff. What are the things that I could be doing? The solutions stuff, making sure that's done really well. And, just availability at the right moments as well. I think all of that is really key. It's just about, being able to show, okay, I'm not in the office all the time, but I still feel like I'm part of something. I still feel like I'm part of a team. The team knows that I'm here. My line manager knows that I'm here. I'm doing all of this good stuff still. And when there's an opportunity to go into the office, that's what I'll do, you know, and just kind of have that actual face time.
Yeah. I've got a hard question for you, right?
Okay.
What do you think is more important? And it's linked to a question I've got later for you. Being visible or being a hard worker. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Right? So being visible. The reason why I'm asking you this is because I know a lot of people, I might as well ask you the question now. So a lot of people feel like they work hard, they do everything that they need to do to get promoted, yet they don't get promoted. I've been through this. I know lots of people have been through this. People that look like us that have been through this. I know this, I've got stories for days around that, right? And they do very well. So that's why I'm asking the question, is visibility more important? Obviously, if you could do visibility and hard work, win-win, is that more important than doing the thing in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in environments as well where people have they've been really visible, but in terms of what it is that they're doing, it's like, okay, what are we working on? Because
nothing.
What are we actually doing?
Nothing,
but yet you're still getting a promotion or whatever, and actually what you are is just a really good stakeholder manager. Is what you're really, really good at. I think you've got to. I think it's a balance of two things. I think it's hard work and it's visibility as well. I think it's hard to say it's one or the other, because I think, I think they sort of go hand in hand in a way. So my feeling is that, yes, definitely, if there's somebody that's just visible but they're actually doing nothing, then hopefully that will be discovered, because you can't just be visible doing nothing for too long. I think there is an element where you probably, and definitely for people that look like us, you have to find the confidence sometimes to sort of back yourself and, kind of be a bit more forthright in saying, okay, these are things that I've done, what else do you need from me? What other things could I do? And so sometimes I think it is important to be able to do that. I know that we're not always all confident in doing that, but sometimes there are people that speak the loudest, that are doing the least. But because, they're speaking the loudest, that sort of helps them to, sort of leapfrog over everybody else. I think there are probably more sort of systematic things that have to happen in an organisation for that to be truly resolved. And I think organisations need to create the space where they have, proper, robust systems and process and policies in place. That means that, the bias and things like that creep into things like, when and how to promote someone, or who to send on, development activities and all of that sort of thing. That needs to be something that's kind of sort of being built into the way that the organisation does things. But I think, in the meantime, I think we do have to sort of back ourselves. And sometimes it's like, okay, this is what I did. And, be able to feel confident in saying, yeah, I did this. Because sometimes it's almost like easier to say, yes, we did. So it sort of takes that pressure off, and it makes you feel sort of less embarrassed in a way that, okay, I'm talking about myself now, but really, we are, as individuals, we're responsible for our own careers. Like, there's very few times where you're going to meet somebody that literally sort of guides you all the way through your career path. And so I think sometimes it's just sort of stepping out of a comfort zone to highlight, these are things that I'm doing, these are things I'm working on, these are things that I've achieved. What else do I need to do? And I think if you're feeling like you're ticking all of those boxes and there really is nothing else, but we're still not getting the promotion, I think that's when you have to start questioning, okay, is this organisation for me? Are they going to ever sort of recognise this? But I think there are plenty of steps that you could take up until that point.
Yeah. What do you think are the signs for somebody to think, okay, this organisation might not be right for me in terms of I'm not getting the recognition I deserve, I'm not getting the promotion, I need to kind of like move on?
What are the signs?
What are the signs you saw? Because you moved on a lot.
Yes.
So you definitely saw signs, right?
Yeah.
And you was not scared to move on?
I think it depends on your, part of it is depending on your sort of appetite for change and coming out of a comfort zone and taking risks. So it's kind of strange in a way, because it's almost like I didn't want to take risks because I was like a single mum and all of the rest of it. But there were certain things where I'm more comfortable to do that. So I wouldn't have walked out and just, out into no job, ideally. But I did. But I think sometimes organisations will show you how they think about you, what they are. It's just a matter of whether you accept it or not. And I think if you're kind of pushing the door and you're doing all of those things, and then you've got somebody saying, oh, well, you're still not quite there, and I can't quite put my finger on, what it is, it will become frustrating, because it's like, okay, well, I've worked really hard, I've done all of these things, I've got the feedback. It's not like I'm hopefully delusional about it, because I have gone out and spoken to people and, tried to get a view. But I think it's when you feel like, okay, I'm really sort of, it's like pushing water up a hill now, and I'm doing all of these things and I'm not getting that recognition. And I've asked and I've tried and I've given them an opportunity to try and do something different. And it's not happened. Then for me, that's when it's okay. It's time now. I'm bouncing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the answer. I've had situations like, I'm out of here. And like I said, I've spoken to people. I don't know if I've spoken to on the podcast, but there's one organization, I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
But there's an organization where like most of the people couldn't get to a certain level, right? That looked like us. It's very far and few in between, right? Couldn't get there. And I had a very specific situation. I had no like personal issues myself. Like nobody did anything to me or said anything to me crazy. But it was like, you had to get a certain rating to get promoted. I got that rating. Didn't happen. And I was like, what's the point?
Yeah.
What am I working on? Let me get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. So you can end up feeling like that. But that also is a sign to tell you like, actually, this place isn't for you. You can work. You can do everything for them. Yeah. But it's not going to work for you. Yeah. So actually, you just need to be looking somewhere else.
I think so. And I'll be honest, if I get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm not finding any joy in this anymore, I'm waking up and I'm not feeling joyful about it, that's a time for me where I think, okay, the time has come now. Yeah. Yeah. Because I need to find the joy in what I do. Otherwise, there's just no point.
Exactly. So I've got a question. I don't know if I asked you clearly, but in terms of like key steps for people to get promoted, what would you say are some of those key steps, like step by step, that somebody can kind of take today and kind of apply in their own kind of situation?
I think always sort of think about the journey that you're on and where you can sort of enrich your experiences. I think that's really key. Because as I said, I haven't always just kind of moved up. I've moved across and things like that, where I thought, actually, I'm going to get something else, something richer, that's just going to all sort of add to my experience. So I think think about all of the things that you might need or that might be useful for you in terms of the promotion, and just think about different ways in which you can get it. So whether it's joining a project team for something, it's not your immediate, the just sort of stuff that you would immediately do or from your immediate team, but if there's kind of a project that you can get involved in, or kind of putting your hand up to just get involved in something just so that you can get the experience of it. I think all of those sorts of things help, because it shows that you're keen as well as kind of you sort of developing yourself so that you can make sure that you're sort of ready for that next kind of move. So I think it's kind of doing all of those things, looking at where the gaps might be and thinking about ways that you can close those gaps. And sometimes you have to be like a bit creative about, okay, what are the ways in which I can close it? I might have to do a little bit of work outside my regular hours to just try and find a way of getting this, learning how to do this other thing. So I would say definitely finding ways to sort of enrich some of the work that you do and enriching some of your experience, even if it's not for this organisation, it might be for another one. I think being able to have the sort of conversation with your manager, which is, okay, what are the things that I'm actually missing in order for me to kind of take these next steps? Because I think, that conversation needs to be had in terms of, what are the things that I should be focusing on, or what are they expecting that I'm just not demonstrating or showing now? So I think sort of doing that, learning and development opportunities that you think, could add something, even if it doesn't add something for this organisation, it might add something for, another role that you do elsewhere. So I think always, if you can, what are the learning and development opportunities that you can get? And I think having a mentor is always a good thing. So a mentor in the organisation that just knows how to navigate things and get things done is really helpful, because I think you can have some, sort of honest conversations with them as well about, okay, what are the things that you think I could do differently, or how do you think I could approach this particular thing?
Yeah.
So I think all those things are probably sort of some practical steps that could be taken. And then after that, it's kind of, you just have to make a decision. Is the organisation promoting you or not? Are you getting to the place that you want to be in or not? Have you had a bit of 360 feedback? So it's not just me, it's, I've had a chat with X and Y, and actually, can't really think of any reason as to why I wouldn't be, sort of moving forward. And I think that's the time when you just have to make a decision for yourself. I always think intuition is a great thing. So, I always kind of listen to my gut, and then it's like, okay, there are bits of evidence that has shown me that my instinct is correct.
Yeah.
So, let me just not waste too much time on this, because life is short. So.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you say, is take charge of your career.
Yeah.
Which we're not taught that.
Yeah.
You kind of just think, work hard, I get promoted naturally. And that's what you think it is. But it's actually more than that. It's about taking charge of your career, whether it's, this organisation is not right for me, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to try and do all the steps I can to get promoted.
Yeah.
You have to actively do something. It's not just going to
it's not going to fall in your lap.
A lot of people think it will.
Yeah. That's I don't think that's a correct perception to have of things, because the sort of belief that something is going to just land in your lap, it just doesn't really work that way. Occasionally some lucky people, have that privilege of something just lands in the lap.
Just work hard in their lap. Yeah.
Or someone that or nepotism or whatever else it is. But for the majority, it's like you've really got to take charge of your career if you want it to go in the direction that you would like it to go in. And sometimes it's about kind of making some of the out of my comfort zone type of decisions to help you sort of get to that place. But your career is very much your career, and you need to manage it and, own it, and not sort of leave it to somebody else to manage, because they will not manage it in the way that you will.
Exactly. Yeah, that's key. I think that's a very key message for people. If they want to get to where you got to, got to manage your career.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, because you mentioned before that job hopping helped. How did that kind of help you?
So I think it has, and it hasn't as well at the same time. So it really has for me, in terms of, it taught me, it just built my confidence. I just had to go into different places and just learn things really quickly. And I was just able to apply what I'd learned in human resources already, and then just kind of transfer it into a different organisation. So it was really confidence building for me. And when I kept getting calls back from the same banks and law firms and things like that, it was a real good boost. It's like, okay, I'm doing the right things here. So that's good. And it did help me to kind of get to the places that I wanted to get to more quickly, as opposed to sort of waiting in an organisation and hoping for that moment. So for me personally, it kind of worked. I think the one sort of cautionary thing I would mention is that when you do that, you're not as integrated into an organization to sort of learn the ins and outs of an organization. Does that make sense? Whereas if you're somewhere for a longer period of time and you're able to kind of get those, those movements upwards or whichever trajectory you want to be on, I think, obviously you've got a really good understanding of the organisation generally, really good understanding of how everything works. You can really see all of the return on, the initiatives that you've put in place. But for me personally, this worked because, I don't mind change. I actually quite like it. In terms of sort of industry or just doing new things in new organisations. So I don't mind it, but it was what worked best for me in terms of just getting that additional experience and just being able to move up the ladder. So yeah, I think there are different ways and means of doing all of these things right, but it's just, whatever works for you. There might be people that are just less comfortable with going out there and doing something new or going into a new industry, particularly if you're really wedded to a specific industry. You might not kind of fancy the idea, but there are, lots of different organisations within that same industry. But I think the key thing is if you, give your current organisation a chance, and if it's shown that it's not happening, then think about what's right for you.
Yeah. Do you feel like maybe we should stretch ourselves a bit more? And also, because you don't have to leave organisation. I've worked at organisation where people do secondments.
Yeah.
They, secondments in other things. They take on like stretch projects to improve their skills and stuff like that. The only reason I'm saying that, and I've got a question about AI later on, is because obviously I feel like AI is now creeping and people are now starting to feel uncomfortable. Maybe we were too comfortable. Some people were too comfortable before, if you get what I'm saying. I'm not saying that necessarily you have to be always moving around, but generally speaking, when you're in a role, if you don't get promoted, you do coast. You eventually coast. You just come in, do the job, and out the door, and it's like, okay, I'm not doing much more and I'm getting paid, and then that's when you're susceptible to you maybe getting a redundancy, unfortunately, and stuff like that. It depends on what motivates you.
And I'm motivated by challenge, what's going to challenge me, what's going to be sort of different, what can I bring to the table, and which organisation does it make sense for me to join? Where do I think I could probably add the most impact? But I guess the reality is not everybody is, some people are like, I want to stay with this organisation for as long as possible, just do enough. And that's fine if that's, some people's choice. But then you can't also expect, if you're not sort of trying to do those other things that get you to those other places, you can't also expect just, to sort of get everything sort of landed in your lap. So it depends on what you're motivated by and what sort of drives and inspires you, I guess, in terms of what your own career is. Because there'll be people that are comfortable with, this is straightforward. I know what I'm doing every day. Whereas there are some other people that probably, sort of chomping at the bit for something different, something else. And as you said, there are different ways of getting something different, even if you do want to stay with the same organisation. As you mentioned, the secondments, there are different projects that you can take on. There are all sorts of things that you could do. There are obviously mostly sort of internal jobs that you can apply for as well, maybe in a different division and things like that. So, yeah, I guess it's just kind of making use of all of the things that are available to you. But yeah, it just very much, it's on an individual basis as to what you feel comfortable with. Yeah.
I think people should consider it, definitely. Because I keep on hearing a lot about AI and I don't know what the impact will be, but I just always say to people, just try and, be on top of some stuff.
There's always, whatever job you're in, there's always going to be some sort of innovation that comes along. Like right now it's AI. There's always something that comes along, and I think we find ways of adapting with it and utilising it. I think AI, obviously, at the moment, it does still need human intervention. because otherwise crazy things could be said. Yeah, I mean, for ideas generation, things like that, I think it's pretty useful, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's always good to sort of keep yourself up with skills and, you know, sort of digital skills and all of those sorts of things. You know, if it's not AI, it's another innovation. There's always something. Yeah.
Are there any skills that you think people should kind of focus on that you think will kind of always be relevant, even in an AI world?
Always relevant are going to be your communication skills. They're always going to be really, really key. The way that you communicate with people. So with or without AI, that's always going to be really important. I think another thing that's always going to be important is just that sort of, you know, sort of solutions focused sort of mindset. That always goes down really well. I don't know anybody that doesn't, you know, sort of appreciate somebody that kind of comes with that. So I think communication skills always. I think creativity always, and I think just sometimes just your ability to be a bit more agile, a bit flexible about things. Not always, not to think, you know, there's only one way of doing something and that's it, and it's just going to be this way. But actually, just be a little bit more sort of agile and adaptable, because that's what life is anyway.
Yeah, amazing. And I want to talk about negotiation, because I think people struggle with negotiating, especially like they get the job offer, desperate for it, yes, I accept, and then it's bad, you got to negotiate, right? So what are some smart, effective negotiation tactics that work for someone getting paid what they're worth?
This is always an interesting one. So I think it's always important to do market research. So just get a general understanding of, okay, this job on the market is what, and, you know, in specific industries, what's roughly kind of what the benchmark would be. And you can see that from just, you know, going on, you know, I don't know, LinkedIn or just various other sort of job sites and things like that. You'll be able to get a general sense of it. And also, if you know anybody in the sort of recruitment consultant world, then you can always kind of get a sense of what are the sort of salaries. But I think, you know, you have to make the decision to apply for the roles where you think it's in the salary bracket that, you know, is relevant to you, because sometimes there will be people that are like, you know, we're going from, you know, 20 to like 100 in like one fell swoop. So I think there does have to be some reality with it. There's got to be a little bit of reality with it, in terms of, okay, what are the things that I bring that mean that actually I should be getting that? And I think, you know, generally kind of going into an organisation, you're in quite a good negotiating spot there, you know, particularly if that organisation really likes you. And you've just got to find that balance of, okay, you know, what's maybe the sort of rough budget that's set for the role. You're not always going to know exactly what it is. Normally it's like a range. But you've got to think about, what are the things that I could bring to this that mean that I should be at the top end of the range or the middle, you know, whatever it is. It's always like you're just thinking, okay, well, I tick the boxes on these things, and plus I've got these additional things as well. So I am going to, you know, ask for it. And sort of back it up with the fact that I'm doing all of these extra things, and then just kind of go from there. And then it'll be, you know, the organisation will kind of make a decision as to, does that feel realistic? Does it not? And then it's just, you know, finding yourself in that position. It can be slightly orcs, I would say, because like awkward. You don't want to be going backwards, forwards. I think there is a point where it's like, okay, if we're not going to get to a place where we're going to, you know, we're going to find some sort of middle ground. Maybe it's, you know, eventually it could be the fact that they'll say, okay, that's it. We, you know, we draw whatever. And you might sort of get fed up with that as well. So I think it's just, I think it's about really thinking about what is paid generally on the market for the things that you do, maybe getting some advice from recruitment consultant as well, and just be ready with these are all the things that I do that show that I'm at that higher end or whatever it is.
Amazing advice. So I've got another tough question for you, but this one's an interesting one. So many people are struggling to get jobs now. It's a bit of a tougher market. What would Joyce do in this market if you were looking for a job? How would you get a job in this tough market?
Yes, I realise it's really tough, really, really challenging. Because my son found it quite challenging as well. But I think for me, I don't have an issue with, sort of turning up.
You got the sauce.
Turning up, yeah. Pop the sauce. I will turn up with, CV, be ready to talk about it there and then.
Okay.
But it just depends on the individual, actually, because there's just lots of innovative ways of doing things. I think, having a CV that stands out is always an amazing thing. I wouldn't put tons and tons in my CV either. It's just mainly sort of a snapshot of key achievements that I'd had in different roles, so that I'm not listing out like a massive list of all of these things. So I'd probably do that. And I would just try different ways of doing things, whether it was applying speculatively, whether it's like I just, set up a stand outside, an organisation or something like that I was interested in and just gave my CV out. I'd find a way of doing it. LinkedIn is obviously a great tool to use. Going to networking events and things like that is really good. Even events with like friends and things like that, when you get talking to people, it's like, okay, I didn't know that you worked in that industry. Could you do me a favour? Just trying to find ways that you can, getting different connections and finding ways that you can kind of get a foot in the door. But yeah, if it sort of comes to, sort of doing something a bit different, I would say go door to door, but that might not be great advice. Even though I did get my son to just print off his CV and just go take it into go down the street and take it into various places. Just do something different.
That was the old school way of doing it.
So so it's very old school, but it's like somebody's actually seeing you in that moment. They're connecting with you as a real person. They're kind of getting a sense of your energy as well. And so that's worked really well. It's worked really well for him. So I guess it's just, I don't know if I've really got anything more that I can kind of add to that. I think networking, going to different events where you might meet people that are in that space that you want to be in, and actually just having a conversation or two. Friends that have kind of networked or have got lots of links and contacts. Just, yeah.
So my final question to you before we wrap up. So what are the key lessons you've learned from leading HR in a globally impactful organisation?
Key things I've learned from leading HR in an organisation such as this is being resilient and adaptable. I think resilience is important in any organisation. Sometimes you're going to come up against things and you just need to find a way around it because, very few things are immovable or, insurmountable. So I think, I think adaptability and resilience, most definitely. I think the kind of nuances of understanding, different markets and how we operate in those markets has been, I'd say that had been a sort of key thing as well. And, sort of managing teams across, sort of different geographical locations as well, and understanding nuances for them. The other thing that I would say is they're sort of navigating complexity with purpose. I think that's really important, just being able to do that. You can join organisations, and I've joined them, where there's just layers of complexity around something. So it's almost like, you'll have a shopping list of 1,000,001 things that need to be achieved, but actually what's actually doable, what's within my control to be able to do, and then how do I navigate it in an impactful way so that we get what we need. And I think the other thing is just empowering teams as well, because I think, again, I just can't be across everything, and it's really difficult to be across everything without burning out. So I think it's, empowering teams is a key thing.
Amazing. Joyce, this has been such an inspiring conversation. I've learned so much from your journey. It's like, it just really shows like what you can do, the power of hard work. The fact that you even said that you, you know, for you, you're somebody that kind of thrives with change, just shows like why you are where you are, and you're so humble. So I don't know. Look, we need to give you a clap for. We don't, like I said, we don't have many chiefs on the podcast, so this is a real honor to have you on the podcast and really inspired by your journey. I'm sure that the audience is going to take so much value from what you've said today. Do you have where can people find you? Firstly. Yeah.
Well, thanks, by the way, for this. Yeah. This has been great, and I've had such a nice conversation. I could just like sit here for a few more hours talking to you.
We're gonna have to do part 2, part 3 for sure.
But people can find me. I'm on LinkedIn. Joyce Idoniboye. That's Idoniboye. Or on my socials, and my handles is Ms_Joycey, and it's Ms with a Z.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joy. Like I said, appreciate you. Do you have any final words for the watchers and listeners?
No, I just think, life is really the journey that you make it, and it doesn't matter how difficult your beginnings have been, you can still live the life that you had dreamed of or you aspired to. I think, it does take hard work. It does take navigation as well, but you have to be ready when you are ready to make the sometimes tough decisions that get you to, the next place in your particular journey. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Joyce. Really appreciate having you on the podcast. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. See you next week's episode.